Thank you, everyone, specifically PIQE, all the organizers, and each and every one of you that are here today, our entire community. Once again, I want to say thank you. Thank you to PIQE. They have allowed us to provide information in this space. And this is a workshop with a lot of information. We have to be very informed nowadays about the current situation, and we do it with joy. And so we will begin what the workshop is, and I only ask you and I want to remind you not to share private information in the chat. This is to make sure we keep your confidentiality. And in the presentation, we'll be able to open the space to ask questions and be able to respond. So let's start. If you can confirm that you can see the screen. I'm sharing the screen right now. Oh, they had explained to us just like I had shared before. Whoever does not know about CHIRLA, I will explain to you briefly who we are. This afternoon, I just want to do a brief review about what we're going to cover. This review will consist of the agenda for this afternoon. We will talk about the recent changes. It's important that we are connected as a community and very well informed about the most recent changes. Why is it important? That way we can respond and prepare and be able to know information with our related to our rights and how it affects us and how it benefits us. Who we are. We will talk briefly about what is CHIRLA, that way you can get to know us, and they will begin with the constitutional rights. What rights do we have as a community, and also what protections exist in in our state of California? It's important for us to know what protections we have as Californians living here in California. And once we know what rights we have, we will know and we will get informed about how we can apply these rights when we interact with immigration officials in three possible scenarios at work, at home, and also part of this informative workshop is to be very careful, be very alert, be very informed about the what immigration fraud is nowadays. Today, as a community, we need to be informed and be able to identify what is an immigration fraud. That way, we can try to avoid to bring in any more victims and what constitutes a preparation plan, a family preparation plan. This is a preview. This is a family plan preview of the next workshop that we will be conducting to be able to learn how to construct a plan, a family preparation plan. So, what is CHIRLA? We are an organization that is founded in 1986, and we're just a couple of months away to be 40 years old as a community. The CHIRLA organization, our mission is to achieve a just society fully inclusive of immigrants. So to make sure that they take us into consideration as immigrants, we also contribute to this country as immigrants. And the way that we want to move forward in our society is to be able to build power within our people, institutions, organizations like PIQE, and that way we can work collectively and in collaboration and be able to move on in some politics that are more amicable to our community. And how do we do this? How do we do this as an organization with 40 years, almost 4 decades of existence of community organization? This is a very simple form to explain. In the last 40 years, in what way has CHIRLA has improved? politics that are more progressive and pro-immigrants. And we've done it in this way by advocating and also educating and also organizing. And here in CHIRLA, if something identifies us as an organization, is that we make the community participate. We want them to participate in our workshops, and we encourage them to participate in our workshops. And with this, I want to begin. If you can respond with comments in the chat, out of these three, which one out of these three do you think we are covering today? For example, CHIRLA for the last 40 years, we've been move on with our mission, advocating, educating, and organizing our communities. Who would like to participate? You can add your comments in the chat and we can read them. If we are advocating this afternoon, if we're educating this afternoon, or if we're organizing this afternoon, I would like to read the comments. If you'd like to participate, or you can add all of them. It doesn't matter. And this way, CHIRLA, in the last 40 years, we will continue to move on with our immigrants' rights. This movement, and this is the way that we've been able to accomplish a lot of victories. A lot of we we've been able to pass AB 60, which is the driver's license for people that are undocumented. This is an example of how everybody in collaboration can fight and accomplish the legislative victories that include, for example, the driver's license for undocumented people. And we've also passed the SB 1210, which is the California Dream Act, or the school enrollment for students, for example. These are legislations or politics that have been able to pass thanks to the efforts of organizations and also we've been able to accomplish, for example, just like you see on the screen, is the SB 1159. These are the professional licenses. For example, a lot of our immigrant communities, come to the United States and they are professionals in their own countries, and they've been able to unfortunately, when they come to this country, they don't allow them to exercise their careers. And we fought for these professionals so so the state of California can um, accept these professional degrees from immigrants from other countries. And that way they can start exercising their careers. These are examples of how we've been able to accomplish everything collectively as an organization and be able to move forward with these legislations statewide. And these have helped our immigrant communities move forward. That is why it is important today more than ever, and that is why it's important to know our rights. And why is it important to work together and to keep moving forward and be able to reject the attacks of this administration. And I also mentioned to you part of the learning as an immigrant community. It's important to know our rights, and also it's important to know that with the attacks that we are experiencing as an immigrant community, it's important to learn about the struggle that exists at the courts nowadays. Nowadays, we are fighting as an organizations. We've been one of the organizations that have experienced some lawsuits in the federal courts. We've been trying to reject the attacks of this administration, and a lot of them. How can we get informed, and why is it important for us to get informed about what laws have been passed and what does that mean for our communities? For example, the Gran y Bella Ley, the big beautiful bill, the law that was passed on 4th July on 2025. What does that mean for a community? What does that mean for everyone and each and every one of us? What this means, unfortunately, is that this law was signed the 4th of July of this year. The president signed it. And what this means is that this allows the current administration to intensify the operations of ICE, just like we witnessed in North Carolina, just like we've seen it in here, and they will intensify the operations of ICE. And by signing and passing this law, this means that there will be an they will be amplifying the detention centers. And part of this new law that they just passed, this administration was able to guarantee funds to be able to hire more than 10,000 ICE agents. These are one of the laws that they've passed, unfortunately, and this is what takes us to be more informed and be very well prepared because, yes, this year is almost over and we will be entering the new year and we have to be very well prepared as a community. Besides this law, there's been cases that are very fundamental as well. This is a way to know that our community has to be informed as how we are organizing ourselves as a community and not only just marching, not only sharing informative workshops. And this struggle, we've been taking it to the courts. We want to let you know you are not by yourself. CHIRLA as an organization has been the vanguard and has been fighting in the courts. And the example of this are the cases that you see on the screen. These are cases that are very important, like Vasquez Perdomo versus Noem, Chirla versus Noem. These cases are very important, and this has allowed, in a way, to reject the attacks of this administration. And some of the victories is, for example, uh, Keith versus Mallorca, since 2020, and practically the modality of the ICE officials were to knock on the doors, pretend that were local police officers, but because of this case and thanks to this case established by CHIRLA, this today is prohibited. ICE agents cannot knock on doors and they cannot pretend to be police officers. They have to identify themselves. These are examples of cases that are very important. Why, as a community, we have to be informed about what type of fight or cases are at the courts. Now, what information is important? Based on the current situation, this device that you see on the screen is very important for us to learn as a community. There's been a lot of questions. What people are the ones that are more at risk? And we want to take a moment to see, for example, the images that we are seeing right now. One of the most common questions that we've heard from our community is the following: what is the risk that I run because of my immigration status? And to be able to understand that, we will explain it this way. The people that run a greater risk are those people that any person that is in the country without any immigration status. Those are the people that run a greater risk than everybody else. They won't have any protection, immigration protection, and that's the main reason because they don't have any immigration protection. And that would be the category of people that have a greater risk. And then there's the people with a legal status that have certain crime background issues. These type of are the people that don't have any immigration status, or maybe a legal immigration status, maybe some type of criminal background. These are the people that run a greater risk as well, with one or two more deportation orders. Also, people that have been in the United States for less than 2 years, and also people that, for example, We have indicated it already, people that without a protection or with background issues or people with less than 2 years. Now, it is important. One of the questions that they have asked us frequently is the following: what type of documents have should I bring with me? Let's learn in which way can we prevent to share information with ICE officials. And let's look at the images that we see here. The first image has a green check mark. Whoever has a work permit that has been extended because of immigration, they can carry that in their pocket. However, documents from your country are not recommendable for you to carry. The reason why is because a document, if you include the consular card, unfortunately, a consular card or any document that was granted by their own country, that can incriminate you as not being a US born citizen. And we don't want to provide voluntary information to an ICE official that can incriminate them. You are not to tell them what country you're from. It's important to make sure they don't incriminate you. And we've talked about the risks that people run. What people are the ones that are at greater risk? And let's see what rights we have. This is very important because we are checking our rights now, and I want to be very empathetic with this. All the people that are in the US have constitutional rights. For example, if you arrived yesterday to the US and you have 30 or 50 years here in the US, you have constitutional rights. And what type of rights are these? It is very important. This administration has tried to insinuate that we as immigrants don't have rights, but yes, we do have rights. And it is very important that we know what rights are we talking about. The following rights are the ones that apply to any person that has entered the US without their immigration status. Without the rights that we are talking about are the are part of the Fourth Amendment. What is the Fourth Amendment of the US? It's the right to not be submitted under a registration of your person or your property. The Fourth Amendment of the administration, without being born in the U.S., regardless of my immigration status and regardless of when I came to the U.S., this amendment allows me it's important for us to know this Fourth Amendment to protect ourselves against an ICE official. I can say that I do not consent for the ICE agent to review me or check me. Why is this important? Once we exercise this amendment, we can avoid the officials to register our pockets or possibly find a document from our country that can incriminate us. That is why it is important to know our Fourth Amendment. It is our right to not allow them to check our personal belongings or check our pockets. The next amendment is the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. All persons have the right to not incriminate ourselves. We have the right to remain silent. And the Fifth Amendment, if you interact with an ICE agent, you have the right to say, I want to exercise my Fifth Amendment and I choose to stay silent. I will not answer questions. The next constitutional right that we have is the Sixth Amendment. It's the right to be represented by a lawyer. That is why it's important for us to have information to have information from a lawyer or an agency that provides immigration advice. It's important to be proactive and identify and have phone numbers from lawyers and organizations. And also, the 14th Amendment is the right to a legal process and the judicial review. These amendments, and I want to be very specific with the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment means the following. The Fourth Amendment means is the right to not be submitted to a registration of personal belongings. If an ICE agent comes to me and wants to check my personal belongings, I can immediately say that I don't consent for him to review my personal belongings. I want to exercise my Fourth Amendment, and I do not consent for a uh, the Fifth Amendment is the right to remain silent. If an ICE agent approaches you and asks you questions, you can tell them clearly that you will not respond to any question that they make, and that you want to exercise your Fifth Amendment, that you want to remain silent. That you will not respond to any questions. And once you know these rights, not only it's important for us to be aware of them, now let's learn to apply these rights. How can we apply these rights? Let's apply it in some possible scenarios. And one of the possible scenarios are at home. What happens if ICE shows up to my house? What can I do? What can I do? What must I know? The first thing that I should know, the first thing that I should apply if ICE comes to your house, if they're knocking on the door, do not open the door. Rule number one, do not open the door at all, not even with the lock device. Why is it important for you not to open the door, even if you have the lock on the door? If you try to open the door, even with the lock on the door, and you open it for a little bit, the ICE agent will think that you are giving them consent to come in, and they will possibly try to kick your door. And for that reason, we don't want to feed them the authorization to be able to enter your home. Rule number two, immediately you have to ask them you can ask them for a warrant. This warrant, this arrest warrant should be they should be provided to you, and they can hand the warrant under the door. The main point is to not open the door until you can see that they have a warrant with them, and they have to show it. In order for you to see it, ask them to hand it under the door without opening the door, without unlocking the door. Why is this step number two very important? If they say that they do have a warrant to come to your house, to come in, your job is to identify what type of warrant this is, because depending on what type of warrant that is will let you know if they can come into your house or not. How can we identify that warrant? One of the possible warrants that they present, it could be a judicial warrant. What is a judicial order or warrant? What is it and what is it not? A judicial order, just like you can see, the arrows indicate on the title, it says United States District Court. You'll see this warrant. It allows an official to come into your house. But before you allow them to come into your house, it's important that we know to identify certain things about this warrant. If if you don't see some of the items included, these warrants are not valid. It's important to know what this order needs to include. Let's learn what should be included. The title. This judicial order or warrant is issued by a court. And you can see it with the arrow. It should say United States Court. and you should be able to see the date that it was ordered. The arrow in the middle is very important because if this order is only valid for 10 days. So that's very important to identify. If this order goes past 10 days, it's no longer valid. It's very important for us to be able to identify the date of this order or this warrant to be able to determine if this is still valid. One of the characteristics that are very, very important is the arrow at the very bottom, which means that the judge needs to sign that portion. It's very important for you to include for you to see that there's a signature and that this was signed by a judge. That's why these orders or warrants have power, and this will allow officials to eventually come into your house. But before they can come into your house, it is very important that we ask a copy or request that warrant or order that they have in hand, be able to see it and determine that it is valid. And only that way, this is the only way that we can validate this order or warrant. So this is a judicial order. Now let's learn about what is an administrative order by ICE. It's very different. It's very different to the judicial order. This order that you see in the screen has two arrows. The arrow at the top, the title is an order arrest for an immigrant, and that this order is executive by the uh, Homeland Security of the United States. And the bottom arrow is the signature. This signature at the very bottom is by an ICE supervisor. This order is an arrest order, and it's actually probably for an undocumented person, possibly. And this order, compared to the judicial one, does not have power. It does not allow ICE to come into the house, to a private house with this order. This is the difference between these orders. And why is it very important for us to be able to identify the type of order that this is in order for us to make sure when they can come into the house or a private place when they cannot. And now that we talked about these two orders, now let's talk about how they look together to be able to determine and visually see what the difference is of both. As you can see, the order, the graph that you see on the left is the judicial order. You see the contrast between the judicial order versus the administrative order. The judicial order has, it says it's issued by the court. It has a date. It's only valid for 10 days and it has a signature by the judge. The one on the right is just an administrative order, and that's the one that they frequently use by the immigration agents, and they try to blackmail and pretend like this is the one that they need to show. They think that this administrative order is the one that allows them to come into the house. And now that we know which order allows them to come in and which order does not allow them to come in, it is very important for us to know to identify these orders. Number one, if they show up to your house, do not open the door, do not unlock the locks in your door. Step number two, if they say they have the order, ask for the order and ask them to just hand it under the door. And their responsibility is to identify what type of order they have. And we have to verify that the order is valid. If it's the graph in the left is the one that will not allow them to come in. That is why you exercise your rights. That's how you exercise your rights at home. Let's talk about the job. We've seen some videos in social media as to how they show up to the workplaces. The first thing that we need to identify in order to come in, it should be a place that is private and they have to have a registration order or a research order. the agents, the immigration agents need to have an authorization. They have to have an order to be able to come into the workplace. Something that is very, very important is, and we will learn this not only in a public place, but also at work. And something that is very, very important is not try to run. Do not try to run. And this is the reason why. And I want to emphasize on this. If we if we know that ICE is in a public place or in our workplace, for example, it's very important not try to run. And the reason why is because once you try to run or escape, that will allow that will give the ICE agent an excuse to just go after you and arrest you. That is unfortunately what has happened. It's very important not try to run or try to escape because you will alarm the ICE agents and they will run right behind you and they will arrest you and they won't ask you questions. It is very important that we know that it's important not to try to run now. Now, some of you might be working and we also include this information which is part of our communities that are business owners, corporate owners. And how can we create an action plan for our business owners? And that is very, very important. They've asked a lot of our small business owners or even corporate owners, they've asked them to collaborate and learn as well as to how they can create an action plan at work to protect their employees. For example, the owners of a business can establish an action plan that can provide a little more of protection to their employees. For example, the employers can assign part of maybe some part of the building could be assigned as not being a public place. It's very important once you apply a sign in your work area is very important because once you identify or label certain areas as private areas, we want to make sure that they're visible. This will allow the employees and the employer to know what areas are restricted for immigration. It's very important. And another recommendation for another recommendation that we make to our business owners or corporate owners are the following. We have to make sure that as a business owner, to make sure that we speak to a lawyer that can be available or be on call in case the ICE agents show up to your business. Designate a group or maybe one or two persons, depending on how big the business is, and create a team to make sure that that person know exactly what to do in case of the arrival of ICE agents and how they can direct and how they can not confront, but be able to navigate the situation and how to get to know very clearly and be able to identify what type of order are acceptable by ICE agents, and that way they can designate this plan and have an assigned person to indicate to indicate the ICE agents to abandon the place, especially if they don't have an order. And some of the recommendations to business owners is to be able to maintain their doors locked in certain halls and rooms to make sure that the majority of the places or areas are locked and closed. For example, the front desk. In certain areas of certain workplaces, there are back doors on the side of the main entrance. Some of the employees use those doors to be able to take their 10-minute break. Those doors, unfortunately, have to be closed all day to be able to prevent any ICE agent from coming in. So that way we can have a better organization to be able to request some sort of order in case they do have to come in through a door where we can have a better control. And that way we have a protocol and the steps and the right and we can go over the right steps to be able to request what we need from them. And let's talk about what happens. In what way can we apply the rights that we've learned? We've learned, for example, we've learned four primarily, and there's two that will help us a lot. In a public place, what happens? How can we navigate the situation if I interact with an immigration official in a public place? Once again, if they arrest you in the street without the corresponding order, technically that shouldn't be done. Technically, they shouldn't be arrested without the of agent establishing that the person has, unless they have established, they have indicated that they don't have a protection. But we know that there's a lot of constitutional rights violation and civil rights violations. The modalities, unfortunately, of these agents are very critical. It's very important which of these two rights that we've learned not too long ago. One of them is to stay silent. If we find ourselves in a public place and then there's an ICE agent that shows up, one of the questions that they will ask us is, are you born here? Were you born in this country? Are you a US citizen? Or in what country were you born? These are the questions that they will ask them. And if they don't have any immigration protection, the person can immediately exercise their right to stay silent. Tell the official immediately or the agent immediately, I want to exercise my Fifth Amendment to stay silent. I will not answer any of your questions unless my lawyer is here. Or else I will not answer your questions. I will not answer any question because I want to exercise my Fifth Amendment to remain silent. And after you say that, it's important that we know immediately to say, I do not consent for you to check my belongings. I do not give anyone my consent to check my belongings. I want to exercise my Fourth Amendment rights. These two rights are very, very important. We need to know them. Uh, we need to know them very well. These are the rights. These are the rights, the most important rights, and how we will apply them. It's very, very important for us to know them and learn them. And also, as residents of California, as Californians, we need to know what type of protections exist because if we know what our rights are, we also have to be aware and we have to be informed that they do exist. We are a state that is very different to other states. We celebrate in California the immigrant contribution, and as Californians and as a state, we have passed some protection specifically for our immigrant communities. Very important today more than ever that each and every one of us know what type of protections these are. One of them is the AB 291. Let's talk about a little more about this. AB 291 are housing protections for immigrants. And this protection exists since 2017. And also at a state level is the SB 54, which is the California Values Act in California. And also it exists since 2018. The AB4, which is the California Trust Act. This was created in January 2014, and recently, in a symbolic act here, as the City Council here in Los Angeles passed an ordinance in November of 2024 declaring themselves as a sanctuary city. And let's emphasize on something. What is a city or a city or a sanctuary state? And they've asked about these questions. There's a little bit of confusion. And before we continue to the next slide, I do want to talk about what is and what is not a sanctuary city or sanctuary state. It is very important to know the difference. It's important for all of us to know and be aware of this. Let's talk about what this a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state like California and the city of Los Angeles and other cities are cities that are sanctuary. We are a sanctuary state. The city or state, the city, sanctuary city means that the city of Los Angeles or the state of California will not cooperate with immigration. That is what it means. That is what a sanctuary city or sanctuary state mean. We will not cooperate with immigration. And now, it's very important as a community that we know the difference. What is a sanctuary city and what is not a sanctuary city? First, we learned that a sanctuary city and a sanctuary state means that we will not cooperate. Okay, we will not allow the police to use our resources in Los Angeles. We will not allow immigration to use our taxes or taxes to be used for their actions that they're not supposed to use. Now, what does a non-sanctuary city or state mean? This doesn't mean that immigration will not come in, but it's very, very important that we know as well what it does not mean. We do not want to get caught off guard. It is very important to be alert and to be very informed. And now, we were talking about what protections exist at a state level. Let's talk a little more about what the protections are. And as a community, we have to be very well informed. We talked about the AB 291. This is very important, people. This is very important. This law at a state level provides protections, immigration protections for tenants. Say, for example, if you or know someone that is a tenant without a protection, without an immigration protection, and because of no immigration protection, the owners think, hello, 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 hello. Yes. So I was mentioning AB 291, these are protections for people without any immigration status, which means that if the owner of that property or the owners of those of that property discriminate you or are harassing you or threatening you just because you do not have any immigration protections, it's against the law. That's prohibited. This is the AB 21. Let's talk about AB 4. AB 4, we've talked about how this limits the cooperation between the state of California and ICE. This impedes uh, it limits local federal corporate. It has local federal cooperation limits, and ASB 54, for example, is what creates the sanctuary state. This impedes the police city, the sheriff, etc., does not cooperate with the ICE operations. That's very important. And there's a topic that we need to be very alert about. These are the immigration fraud. This is an immigration fraud. It's important because I want to remind each and every one of you that your immigration process is only seen by immigration's agents or licensed immigration agents and someone that you trust, not a notary, not a notary. With all due respect to all our notaries and our professionals, they are not capable and they're not prepared to take your immigration case. It's very, very important. What happens if you know or you have been victim or you know of someone that has been victim of immigration? Here are the numbers on the screen where you can call and report and make a report as an immigration fraud victim. It's very, very important. One's at a state level and one's at a federal level. It's very, very important. If you don't know, if you don't have something to write down with, we have you can call CHIRLA and we can share this information later on with you. And also, it's very important, and I want to give you a preview, a very brief preview about what it consists of being prepared, about a plan. We'll talk about this in the next workshop, but I want to give you a little preview about what we will talk on the next workshop. This is a family plan. This is a family plan. It includes it's a plan that we need to share with our loved ones. If you have kids, it's important to have a family plan, have a caregiver for children. What type of documents you need to have handy or need to be handy to be able to find a lawyer if you don't have the number or if you don't have an organization that can help you with a representation. And also how to create funds in case of any emergency circumstances. It is very important. One of the last highlights that I wanted to share with you nowadays, thanks to the technology, through your phone, you can locate a family member that could be detained through ICE. This is the way you can do it by checking the locator that ICE provides through the internet. If you don't have anything to write down with, you can call CHIRLA and I will introduce you with that information. But before, part of the information that I have shared here, and also how to know how to be prepared and what to do, how to create that plan and the declaration of caregivers, like the little cards that we carry in our purse or bags. You can find it through the CHIRLA website, just like you see it in the screen, where it says click. You can click and it'll send you to the indicated area where you can find out about your rights. You will find more videos of what to do, how to interact with immigration, how you can download this information that's in Spanish or in English, and the cards and the declaration cards for caregivers. And also, you will find that and everything in that section, all the documentation, how to be prepared, how you have your right, how to know your rights as a community. And also, I know that there's always a question that everybody asks. How can I contribute? How can I help? Now, as a community, more than ever, against all these attacks that we're experiencing, we're all helping each other. We have a phrase, and the phrase is that the community saves the community. As a community nowadays, today more than ever, we have to be informed, and also today more than ever, we have to help each other. And whoever asks, what can I do? How can I help? Well, you can start sharing this information with other people. What you learn, share it with someone else. And also stay informed through workshops, just like today, just like PIQE has been allowing us to share this information. Also, uh, provide community organizations that are helping immigrants. You can join the quick network response. Um, and document and be able to inform others and be involved in these efforts, and also how to document the ICE activity. If you experience an ICE operation, or you can become a member of CHIRLA. We have an excellent member team, and these are people of the community. They always are taking leadership of their respective communities. And last but not least, but I also want to share that CHIRLA is one of the organizations with an immigrant assistance line. This number that you see here is 1-888-624-4752. You can call this number and you can ask questions, you can cause an emergency or attorney references or contact numbers for lawyers or resources that you're unable to find, or also see in what way we can represent you with your immigration process. And with this, we've now come to an end. Now we can open the chat or open the space for questions. Thank you, Winston. First of all, let's give a virtual applause to Winston for all the information for his presentation. Even his computer said, let me breathe a little bit. Good information, Winston. And we have some questions here. Winston, I'm going to read a question and hopefully you can respond to it in the end because it's a lot of information. And all the information that we have here will be provided through email. So you can have that. The question to end, if there's something that you can say in case of an emergency, in case of a very stressful moment, what we've seen in the news is that these are very stressful moments, very moments of distress and fear. If there's something that you can, if you can say something that we should remember, what would that be? If you can answer that towards the end. Also, we have a question here. The first question was, if I'm detained by ICE or interrogated by ICE, can I show my California driver's license that shows federal limits? Good question. And it is very important that we reference what we've learned about the rights and how not to incriminate ourselves. We do not have to voluntarily provide any information about our immigration status. The question is excellent, very excellent. It's a very good question. This allows us to study when can we show that license, that AB 60, and who we are not supposed to show our identifications. The driver's license for undocumented people, there's no issue by presenting that to a police officer, like for example, the city police, the mayor, or the sheriff, or a state official of California. Why? Because these are California officials, and the state of California has provided that license. Now, that license, as is tagged, these licenses and identification documents are not to be presented to the ICE agents. This is the way that they will know that they do not have an immigration protection. And once you show that document to ICE agents, you're incriminating yourself. So they're the ones that you don't have to provide identification or information to. And that's the answer to the question. You don't have to show your identification documents or IDs to an immigration agent. You can show that to state officials. Okay? What happens if the ICE agents are not respecting the Fourth Amendment or the Sixth Amendment? Very good, good question. Very good, good question. What we've noticed, and unfortunately, just like all our our communities are very smart. And we know that unfortunately, those are the modalities that ICE is not respecting, and they're not respecting it. Some steps that we need to take into consideration, and I want to emphasize on this very, very much, is that there are two main things, three things, two main things. If we interact with ICE, let's not resist. Let's not escalate the situation. Let's de-escalate it. Let's not make it worse because people, we have to be very, very important. That's what they want. They want for us to believe and they want us to resist. So that they know that they are breaking the law. They know that they're breaking the rule. The agent has to establish that you do not have an immigration protection, and the only way to establish that and be able to say that you're not protected is if you voluntarily tell them that you don't have protection, or if you allow them to check your belongings. If you exercise your right to stay silent, you're exercising your rights accordingly. What happens if they violate those rights? Number one, let's not escalate the situation. Do not resist. Number two, document. Record with your phone and tell the official or the agent, say, I'm going to record you for my safety. I'm going to record you for my safety. I have to record right now. Now, keep an eye on this. And I like this question because if you are not alone, every time we go out with somebody and we are with somebody, that is why it's very important for us to share this information with other people. If I am hanging out with a friend and they're arresting me, my friend has to be informed about this and he needs to automatically know that he needs to start recording. If they're arresting me, that person that's with me has to be ready, has to be prepared and informed that they need to start recording immediately. Now, some of them might say, why am I going to record if they're not respecting? Well, how is that going to help? Let me remind you, a lot of the lawsuits that already exist in the courts and that have succeeded is thanks to the evidence that they have been able to collect. It's very, very important to fight in that way. And that's how we can win the cases by our documentation or evidence. Now, what happens if they violate my rights? Do not resist, do not escalate, and document. Have someone ready to record. And similar to what you mentioned, the next question is, what happens if they do show me the order under the table and it is for me and it's signed? What if I still do not want to open the door? First of all, First, first step is not open the door. Second is to identify and check that the order is valid. And if you are able to see that it's a valid order, eventually the agents, if everything's valid, eventually the agents have the right to come in. However, only only if you've verified that that's the right address, it's the correct name, that the order is valid, then an alternative, and this is considering, we know it's a little confusing, but let's take into consideration what people are inside the house in that moment. Let's take into consideration who's in the house and what protections they have. If the people that are inside the house, the rest of the people in the house and don't have an immigration protection and that order is valid, eventually the agents with that order will be able to come inside the house to be able to avoid them coming in and expose everybody else that might not have an immigration protection. What you need to do is you need to come outside and immediately close the door, lock the door. That way you don't expose the people that are inside. You come out, close the door immediately, lock it, and do not expose everybody else that's inside. We need to know who's inside the house and make sure that they are not interrogated because they're not the people in the order. It's it's better to do what Winston is saying. If the order is for you, come outside. If the order is valid, come outside, close the door, lock the door immediately, and protect everybody else who is not protected inside the house. You mentioned something very critical, and this is to prevent exposing other people.